The field of biomedical engineering is a bit of a funny one. Sometimes the brightest minds, the most accomplished biomedical engineers, masters, PhDs, tens upon tens upon tens of years within the actual field stay stagnant, they never get promoted, and they never can get what they want within the field. While other people, not particularly the smartest within the field, but people who have specific insider skills, get promoted and walk out with the offer that everyone else wanted. The BME degree which you have never taught you these specific skills that we're going to be talking about today. So what is the premise of today's video in itself? The premise is as follows. Your biomedical engineering degree teaches you to be competent within academia in itself, to be competent when you're being tested under a curriculum which needs to have specific regimented tests in order for you to prove that you understand, but it doesn't teach you how to become promotable. It doesn't teach you how to become profitable within your workspace, and it doesn't teach you how to become a skilled, dynamic individual, and this is what we're going to be looking at today. There is a gap between what gets you through the exam, which is what your degree is designed to do, and there is a gap between what gets you trusted in a room. And this video is that gap. Before this video, you're someone who is a professional biomedical engineer or a student. You understand the field and you have a degree, or you're almost about to finish and get your degree. So you are competent within the field, but you are not promotable, you are not approachable, and you don't have the specific skills that will basically get you trusted in any and every single biomedical room which you walk into. So why is there a specific gap within the field of biomedical engineering? Why isn't it as easy as just studying for 4 or 5 different years and then just moving out into the professional landscape while being a competent biomedical individual? Why is there a gap? There's a gap because universities can't teach these skills. University degrees are always optimized for accreditations, examinable, measurable knowledge, and transferable, defensible knowledge according to other academics. So you need to study hard sciences, math, and a lot of different theory needs to be crammed into you for 4 years in order for a degree to be able to give you a specific certification. So you are basically being tested for specific theory, while these skills that your career rewards, unfortunately, they aren't able to be measured. You cannot measure the ability to read a room in 90 seconds as a biomedical engineer. You cannot measure someone's ability to be able to talk to and manage people who outrank you within the professional landscape. You aren't able to measure how to sell an idea without being salesy and pushy. You aren't able to measure how to know when a project is dead and then you have to move on to a different project. And finally, you aren't able to measure how to write specific emails in a sequence that seniors who actually just skim through the content are able to actually read and act upon. And this is why universities actually don't hide these skills from you, but they aren't able to teach them, because there is no way in order for a university to be able to track you as a student or as a professional according to these skills and your performance within them. And this is actually good for you. This is your secret advantage. Nobody's hiding these skills from you, and over here at BM Essentia, we are actually showcasing these skills. They are not on the syllabus because they cannot be examined, and this is where you come in. If you are someone who wants to develop, this is your go-to video. So let's now talk about the 6 skills that nobody put on your transcript. I can guarantee you that you might have graduated for 4 years with a biomedical engineering degree, but none of these 6 skills are found on your transcript, and this is your secret advantage. So this is what we're going to be covering in today's video. Skill number 1 is how to read a room. How to know who actually has a power within the biomedical meeting which you're attending. Skill number 2 is being able to talk to surgeons, how to push back respectfully, or unfortunately you might get sidelined if you are very pushy. Skill number 3 is being able to learn hospital politics. Who moves money around within a hospital and who holds the veto. So who is the decision maker within a hospital and how can you communicate and get closer to them. Skill number 4 is being able to sell without selling. And every biomedical engineer ends up in a sales moment, whether they know it or want it, or they do not know it and they do not want to end up in a sales moment. We all end up in sales moments. So you need to be able to sell without feeling and sounding salesy. Skill number 5 is being able to write for non-readers, and by non-readers I mean people who skim through the emails. Mostly they are seniors within the hospital, organization, company or institution, whatever it is, and they skim through what's important. So being able to write tailored to these people is basically where you get rewarded. And then skill number 6, the final skill for today, is basically knowing how and when to leave a situation, a deal, a meeting, or whatever it is. This is the skill that is able to save your entire career. So without further ado, let's go into the skills one by one. Skill number 1, the ability to read a room, the ability to be able to navigate yourself within a biomedical meeting, because the first 90 seconds should be able to tell you what matters and who matters within the meeting or the room which you're in. And unfortunately, most biomedical engineers spend the first crucial 90 seconds looking at their slides, trying to prepare what they're going to be talking about, when they could have basically watched for some specific signals within the actual room. So let's look at a specific scenario. Picture this with me. A device demo in a hospital procurement meeting. 8 people are in the room, and you assume that the head of cardiology is the decision maker because she is the most senior physician within the room. So you turn all of your attention towards that person, towards her, towards the senior physician. But unfortunately, in hindsight, she isn't. The director of the procurement team is actually the most important person when it comes to this specific meeting, sitting, or this specific room. He is the one with the budget line. The cardiology chief can veto, but she can't approve what is purchased and what isn't purchased. The biomedical manager runs the lifestyle costs, and his quiet objection kills 40% of the deals. The biomedical engineer who pitches the device to the cardiologist unfortunately loses. The biomedical engineer who answers the procurement officer or the procurement manager's questions, addresses the biomedical's life concerns, and lets the cardiologist nod along is the person who wins. And this is known from the first 90 seconds within the meeting. How can I tell which person is, or which person holds the most power within a meeting, in order for me to be able to cater to every single person's differences and win the actual meeting? These are the 5 signals that you should be able to watch for. Firstly, you should know who other people look to when a question is asked. This basically lets you know who is in control or who has the decision power within a meeting. Secondly, you should know and look at the person who interrupts when anyone is talking and is allowed to interrupt, because the person who interrupts and is allowed to interrupt is usually someone who has weight and is usually a decision maker. Thirdly, you should be able to identify who sits next to the most senior person, because they have a lot of influence over the actual senior person's decision. Fourthly, you should be able to know whose phone people actually answer, so who can make phone calls that actually move the actual meeting direction or the room's direction. And finally, you should look at the person who speaks the last, because they are always the decision makers and deciders. They let everyone talk, everyone speak, they hear from every single person, and then they speak last when they have every bit of information within the actual meeting. Power in a hospital is rarely on the title that a person holds within the actual room. It is in the body language of any and everyone else in the actual room. Skill number 2 is being able to talk to surgeons without flinching at all. Surgeons are extremely blunt they are time sensitive and poor because they have no time at all. They're all jumping between different surgeries and they are used to being deferred to. And that deference is the trap. What do we mean by deference and how does it backfire in most situations? So picture this little scenario with me. A surgeon comes up to you and tells you that the new pacemaker programmer that they have received from you is broken. You know that it isn't broken and you know that he is wrong. However, you have three options as a biomedical engineer. Firstly, you can nod. You can take the pacemaker programmer back and you can waste a day proving that it actually works while the surgeon is wrong, and then he will call you incompetent and he won't rely upon you again. Secondly, you can tell him that he is wrong and then you can basically go back and forth with him until he stops calling you ever again. Option number 3 is as follows. You can say, for example, doctor, walk me through what you have actually done. I want to make sure that I'm seeing it from the view that you saw it from. So watch him replicate the wrong sequence of programming. So now watch him replicate it in the wrong sequence and then stop him and say, I think I see it. I see what you're doing here. Try this other way and tell me if that's what you expected. He will fix it himself by you basically directing him. He will feel smart and he will be able to rely upon you. The most important thing that you did is that you didn't push back with a fiery response. You weren't extremely pushy. What you did is that you haven't started with a no or actually you're doing it wrong or whatever it is. You have made them replicate the problem with you in front of you and you have asked them to teach you what they have seen and expected, and then what you do is, as a smart biomedical engineer, you frame the correction as a discovery that they have made. So you make them feel smart. And then when you close, you always say, tell me if that is not what you wanted. This just makes a surgeon feel more safe. Skill number 3 is being able to navigate hospital politics, because hospital politics is a real thing within every single hospital and clinical workflow in the world. Every hospital runs on 3 power systems. Every hospital runs on 3 different pillars. The degree has taught you about a single pillar. The single pillar that you have seen and studied within your biomedical engineering degree is the clinical system, or the CP, the clinical pillar. It is made up of doctors, different hospital departments, the clinical priorities, and this is the one that your textbooks always describe, whether you're studying clinical engineering or whatever other course. But the other 2 pillars that are even more important that influence hospital politics are the financial system, or the financial layer, and the political system, or political layer within the actual hospital. The financial system is made up of the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, and the procurement team, the supply chain and all of the logistics around it, and the budget cycles and cash flow. And this pillar is the pillar that actually approves equipment. For example, cardiology might get an MRI device before the radiology department, not because cardiology needed MRI more than the radiology department. It is because cardiology ended the year under their budget, or their spending budget, so they had more capital to spend. From the outside, you might look at it and be like, radiology needs an MRI device more, so why is cardiology getting an MRI device? But from the financial aspect and the inside aspect of the actual hospital, cardiology had a bit of a spare budget to spend, so they went ahead and purchased an MRI. And the political system, which is the final pillar that the hospital runs on, which is basically all about who is hiring whom, which physician's signature unlocks every purchase order, and who is quietly on the way out. And this decides everything. So this is basically all that talks about who is in basically the place of being able to make hiring decisions, who is on the way out, so nobody is talking to them about sensitive information, who is the most important and powerful surgeon, which has a signature that unblocks every single purchase order, and so on and so forth. So in your first 90 days working in a hospital setting, for example, be able to map these things, be able to understand these things, and be able to put these things into perspective. You should know who reports to whom on paper versus in practice. You should be able to distinguish and know which department has a surplus in budget this year. You should know exactly and befriend the physician whose signature accelerates any purchase order that is being made, and you should actually be very diligent, and you should understand and know clearly who your boss or your superior copies on every single important email, because the person who your superior copies is obviously an even further superior, so they are very important for you to be able to know and be aware of. And then finally, know whose name comes up in every meeting and why does that name come up in every meeting. If you only see the clinical system or the clinical pillar of the hospital politics or inside the hospitals, you'll wonder why your good ideas will keep dying, because the other two pillars you lack understanding of, and they kill every single idea. Now, skill number 4 is being able to sell without selling within the field of biomedical engineering, because every single biomedical engineer ends up in a sales moment. Whether they want it or whether they avoid it, you will always end up in a sales moment as a biomedical engineer, no matter what your position is. And the biomedical engineers who pretend that they won't, who pretend otherwise, will lose every single time. So picture this with me. You're pitching a device to a hospital committee. You're defending a design choice to a VP. You're convincing a surgeon to try a new tool out. You're asking your manager for a project. You're telling a vendor their bid is too high, or you might be telling your team to drop a feature. These are all selling moments. So no matter your position in a hospital, a company, an institution, whatever it is, you're always pitching and you're always in a sales moment. And every one of these moments is a direct sale. You're either selling a service, a device, a conversation, a future meeting, a budget, a project, attention. You're selling something as a biomedical engineer. Each of these is a sale, and none are taught directly to you. The biomedical engineers who are exceptional at these moments or in these moments aren't just good at sales, they are good at making the other person feel like the decision was theirs. And this, for me, is the most important skill of all, because set aside biomedical engineering, you are always selling. You're selling an idea to your parents, you're selling an idea to a friend, you're selling a conversation in order for you to do something. You're selling yourself on an interview, you're selling yourself when you're presenting an idea. You are always in a sales scenario. So this is more tailored toward biomedical engineering. So this can actually be used within the field or outside of the field. So how do you actually trick people, ethically obviously, in order for them to feel like the decision was theirs? And let's talk about it in a biomedical perspective. Always set up the question so the answer they reach was your original idea. For example, instead of asking, after you present, you say, here's why this works, or this will work for you, or does this work for you? You might be like, what would have to be true for this to be able to work? And then they will start reverse engineering with their answer until they reach your actual offer itself. So these are the phrases that move people without you selling them. So basically phrase the question as, what would have to be true for this to work for you? And if your product is exactly what they want, they will say, this specific thing needs to be true, and this needs to be true, and this needs to be true. And then they will stop for a moment, and then you'll be like, this is exactly what we have as a product. So they won't be able to opt out because they have answered exactly what they want, and you have it. And you let them take you to the actual answer without you having to convince them that this is what they need and what they want, because now you're being too pushy. And then we have to move to back to skill number 2, which is talking to surgeons or any person within the field without being able to flinch and without being too pushy. Another phrase that you can say is, help me understand what you're worried about. Another phrase is, if we did nothing about this specific situation, or if we don't agree to sell this medical device today, what would happen to your department in 12 months? They will start thinking in a pattern that basically needs the solution that you're providing without you actually pushing the solution onto them. You can also say, what would change your mind on this? This is mainly for you to be able to capture where they are, so that you can basically build better answers and you can be more responsive in the conversation. And then finally, you can say something like, you know this better than I do. What would you do if you were in my situation? They might tell you the device is too expensive. You might say this, and then they might advise you so that in the next meeting, you can basically adjust yourself better. The best salespeople in any industry, they don't sound like salespeople. If you sound like a salesperson, then no one will buy from you. You should sound like someone is thinking out loud with you. Skill number 5 is being able to write for people who don't read. And by people who don't read, we're talking about seniors, C-suite executive, procurement managers, HR managers, and top surgeons within the campus of biomedical engineering. Because all of these senior people, they only scan. They skim, so they don't read long sentences, long paragraphs, long emails, unwanted fluff that isn't needed. If your writing rewards scanning, as we will see in the good writing section over here, then you will be heard and you will have action taken according to your writing. If it doesn't, then you won't be heard at all. There is one email that gets ignored from every senior, and there is one email that is acknowledged and doesn't get ignored at all. Most biomedical engineers actually write emails like lab reports. You have the context first, and then you write the methodology second, and then you recommend at the end. So recommendations are actually buried at the end, and they don't know what and how to use your actual email. And a vice president will, most of the time, due to the time crunch, they will read the first 2 lines of your email and the last line, and everything, unfortunately, is invisible in between. So flip it using this structure, which always works. Firstly, in line number 1, write the decision or the ask that you want. This will grab attention, and this is polarizing to start with. Secondly, in line 2, add the 1-sentence reason for the decision or the ask. In the third portion, have 3 to 4 bullets maximum for supporting, basically more detailed, supporting the ask and decision and the reason. And then finally, you end with the next steps, and always make it time boxed, meaning always put a counter or a time frame on the actual next steps. So it basically creates a fear of missing out, or basically an urgency feel. And never use per my last email, so never link a last email with this unprofessional or in this unprofessional manner. So a bad email might say, following up on our discussion last week, you've already breached most of the structure itself. Regarding the imaging upgrade, after reviewing the vendor responses, this is extremely boring. No one will actually read it, and they will miss it and dismiss it. The good email actually goes something like this. Recommended vendor B is 8% cheaper. They have a 4-hour faster service window. There is one risk. The PACS integration is a risk. We need 15 minutes on Thursday to confirm if you have the time availability. And then the final skill, which is knowing when to leave. And this is the most valuable career skill that nobody teaches at all. And this is why biomedical engineers stay 2 to 3 years too long stuck in the same exact place. So picture this with me. You've stopped learning. The work this quarter looks identical to the last quarter, and your manager's praise has shifted from you've grown fast, you're developing, you're advancing, to you're a reliable person within this organization. Unfortunately, that's a downgrade, but it has just been dressed as a compliment. A promotion has slipped from you 3 times, and the reason always keeps changing. Oh, it slipped because of this, and because of this, and because of that person, and this person. Unfortunately, that is a pattern, and that's not bad luck. The people getting promoted are doing the work you used to do. They are advancing. They are basically bettering themselves. They are going out of their way to have new experiences within the actual field. You're now too senior for visibility projects, and not senior or competent or capable enough for the projects that matter. So what happens is that you are now left out, and knowing when to leave is the most important part. So there are 4 signals that you need to track in order for you to be able to kind of make sense of where you are, and for you to be able to know if the time that you're in is the actual time that you need to leave. The first A signal is, have you learned a new skill this quarter at all? Are you advancing your actual career this quarter? If not, consider leaving. Second one is, has your scope grown in the last 12 months? Did you meet new people? Have you made new connections? Did you advance? It is connected to the skill above. Did you enter more meetings? Do you have more people skills or more technical knowledge within the area of expertise? If not, then consider leaving. The third signal to watch for is, has a promotion slipped from you more than twice? This obviously means something. And then the fourth signal is, are you doing the work that your peers refuse? Are you doing a lot of donkey work? Are you doing a lot of unwanted work that people are throwing at you? And then a final one as a bonus, has your manager stopped fighting for you? Because as we know, if you're a key player, if you're a talent, and if you're a star, even if you're in the lowest ranks, the manager always sees something in you and he always fights for you. So if all of these 5 different signals or metrics aren't going exactly where they need to go, which is only up, then you consider leaving. The cost of leaving a year too early might be a salary bump early on within your career, but the cost of leaving a year too late, unfortunately, is the next miserable decade of your life as a biomedical engineer. So now let's look at something which is extremely interesting. The compounding effect of these skills, because these skills don't just add. You don't add skill 1 and 2 and 3 and now you have 6 skills at the end. These skills multiply, because every one of these 2 skills, if stacked together, creates a compound snowballing effect, because each one unlocks a room that the other one wouldn't be able to get you into. So for example, being able to read the room, being able to read meetings and direct your attention towards the important people within a meeting, plus being able to sell without selling, will help you close deals that others can't even open to begin with. Secondly, being able to understand the 3 pillars within hospital politics and how to navigate them, plus writing for non-readers, so writing for seniors, will be able to move budgets within or in your favor. And then finally, being able to talk to surgeons, plus knowing when to leave a dead place, helps you negotiate every single time from a point of strength and not a point of weakness, from a point of leverage. So why does nobody talk about these skills? And we have touched on this before at the beginning of the video, but now that you have seen the actual skills, you understand the actual skills and their importance. Let's bring it back down again and look at why nobody talks about them. Nobody talks about these skills. No university talks about them. No professional talks about them. No person in the field talks about them, because firstly, they cannot be examined. As we said, no one is able to grade your ability to read a room or read a meeting. No one is able to grade your ability to be able to sell perfectly. And no curriculum is able to, so no curriculum includes these skills. That's why your transcript doesn't have any of these skills. Secondly, senior people forget that they had to learn these skills. After a decade of practice, 20 years of being a professional, they say that these skills should feel like common sense and they should come with time. Some do. If you're a competent, dynamic, intelligence person, with time they come, but you need to be able to train yourself on these skills. The earlier you start acquiring these skills and learning these skills, like we'll see in the rest of the presentation, the more opportunities that you have. And then when you reach 10 years within the practice, 20 years within the field, then you will crush every single senior who is around you. The third point as to why nobody talks about these skills is that saying them out loud feels and sounds political. For example, I am learning hospital politics. This sounds extremely careeristic. So people learn it in private and the next generation has to figure it out on their own. And then finally, the reward is invisible from the outside. You don't see the reward of the deal that didn't blow up. You don't see the reward of the project that got quietly resourced due to your skills. You don't see the reward of the promotion that arrived without you having to ask. These are all on the low. They are all invisible from the outside. You see them, but you can't really feel them. They're not that tangible. And if everyone learned these skills in school, they'd stop being a competitive advantage, and no one has learned them, so they are a competitive advantage for you, and hence why they are the invisible opportunity that you are able to hold and acquire after today's video. So how do we actually build these skills? These skills are cool and all, and we saw them and we talked about them and we understand them and we have the steps in order for us to be able to apply them, but how do we actually apply them in practice? There is no course to help you apply these skills, but there is a method and a way that is only present and found over at BM Essential. Firstly, you should observe first and then find a mentor who will be honest with you, and then you run small reps weekly or daily. So what do I mean? Firstly, you pick one senior that you respect and that you want to be in the position of later down the line in the future. For 2 weeks, you watch what they do in every single meeting. Not what they say, but how do they act? Who do they look at and what do they refrain themselves from saying? When do they speak? And if they speak last, what do they say? Most learning in the observation first phase is basically quiet imitation. Secondly, you find a mentor who is extremely honest and punctual with you. You don't go to the official mentor that your HR department has assigned. You find someone who has seen you fail and is willing to tell you why you have failed, is willing to tell you that you're not doing enough, and who's willing to hurt your feelings if it's for a good cause. You can buy them coffee monthly and you can ask whatever questions that you want, and then couple these first 2 steps onto step number 3, which is running, and this is the most important by the way, which is running small reps weekly or daily. I prefer daily, but weekly is basically, a week is 7 days, so running it every single day makes you stronger week by week. Have one uncomfortable conversation every single week or every single day. Have one pushback with or to a surgeon. Have one scannable email instead of writing a block of text. Try one of the actual reframing questions that we asked. Instead of saying, would this work for you, say, what would have to be true for this to be able to work with you or to align with yourselves? Because reps beat theory every single time. And just know that these aren't skills that you read about. These are skills that you practice quietly over years. This is your 90-day starter stack. The 6 skills, 1 concrete action for every single skill for 90 days. And I guarantee you that you'll become a totally different biomedical engineer. So for skill 1, reading the room, in your next meeting, spend 5 minutes just watching who looks at whom and who speaks first, and don't speak first at all. Leave your slides and focus on the actual room. For skill number 2, which is talking to surgeons, when a doctor basically pushes back, reply, instead of saying, no, this is good and you don't understand it, whatever it is, just say, walk me through what you saw. I want to make sure that I'm not missing it and I am seeing it from your eyes, and then you can correct them from there. For skill number 3, which is hospital politics, map your organization's chart on paper, then map who actually influences each decision, as we said. And as we said, there's the clinical pillar, there is the financial pillar, and there is the politics pillar as well. For skill number 4, which is selling without selling, in your next sales pitch, replace one statement with a question. So say something like, what would have to be true for this to work for you or align with your goals? And then for skill number 5, which is writing for seniors, so non-readers, for skimmers, take your next email, cut it in half, and then cut it in half again and send that version over. That will guarantee you more replies and better action. And finally, for skill number 6, which is knowing when to leave, write down the 4 or 5 different signals which we have talked about, the 4 signals and the bonus signal from slide number 10, and review them every 90 days honestly in order for you to be able to gauge where you are within your professional career. The takeaway that I want you to get out of this video is that your degree got you into the room, but these skills will get you a seat at the table. Your degree was the ticket of entry into every biomedical engineering room and situation, but it was never going to be the differentiator that differentiates you from every single person. The differentiator is the work that nobody is able to examine you on. It is the work behind the scenes, and it is the work that nobody wants to bother themselves with doing. And that work starts the day you decide it does. And for yourself, I congratulate you, because that work has already started by you clicking on this video and watching through till the end. And this is a final thought from myself that I would like to leave you with before we end. Every single biomedical engineer that you'll meet 10 years from now, running departments, leading R&D and founding biomedical companies, aren't the ones who graduated with the highest GPAs. They're actually the ones who started practicing these 6 skills before anyone else has told them to. So what are you waiting for? I want you to start immediately. Head over to the BM Essential platform at bmessential.com, get your 7-day free trial, build your starter stack, and experience the system for yourself and experience what it is to become a competent biomedical professional within the field. And I'll see you in the next one.